thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm sure we're going to have some great insight that you're going to be able to share with us today. And I just have been such a big fan of you ever since I met you at the New York Bankers Association conference as a student delegate. And you probably don't know this, but when I walked in, I was a little late for the dinner, and I was so scared, and I didn't know if I was wearing the right clothes, if I was looking okay, if I was on theme. And I walk in, and everybody is silent and listening to you on stage, and I just like creep on at the back and take a seat right on the corner on this table that has like one empty spot. And after your speech, you walk up to me and you're like, I noticed you during my speech, you came in late and you were just like so scared and nervous, and you just helped me kind of navigate the situation and introduced me to a few people and assured me I'm gonna have fun that weekend, which I did. So I'm so great we're able to do this today because I'm sure you'll have great stuff to tell other young
Oh,
women trying to enter the industry. So I'm looking forward to our chat today.
oh, Gunter, that is so sweet. First of all, it is my honor. I'm so flattered that you wanted to talk to me. And I want you to know, I don't know if you know the rest of that story, that my speech, as I was talking to you, was talking about I had been through the exact same situation. I had to go to a conference all by myself, the only person from the state of New York actually there. It was a big national conference. And I didn't know a soul when I walked in. And I was talking about, right as you walked in, I was talking about how scared I was and how much I wanted to change who I was in that situation because I didn't know anybody. And I thought I was totally misplaced. And so I saw you walking in and I thought, oh my goodness, she's going through the same thing I just did. And the good news is we both made it through both conferences because I was nervous to be on that stage too. But we both made it through. We both had a lot of fun, right? And I got to meet you, which is such a pleasure. And it's been so great to know you and watch you succeed. You're already in Boston at a new job and doing terrific things. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with me here today. So I'm going to kick off our interview with one very important question. Is in your own words, maybe you can give us some background on New York Bankers Association, what it does, what are its aims, objectives. So I think that'll be a good start to it.
Sure, sure. So we are the New York Bankers Association, a 129-year-old organization, formed right about the time we represent all of the banking industry in all of New York State, and we were formed during a little time of crisis, potential recession back in 1894, kind of like what we're facing right now, right? And we, at our core, we're a service organization for the banking industry in New York. Our primary function is to provide advocacy and public affairs work for somewhere around 150 banks all the way across New York State, most of the banks in the state, of every size, every region, every charter. So to put it as an example, we represent a tiny little one branch bank on the shores of or on the Canadian border, Messina Savings Bank. They specialize in agriculture lending, all the way up through and including some of the largest financial institutions in the world, including the largest in the country, JP Morgan Chase, which is one of our founding members, and everybody in between. And so what we do is we're talking advocacy, not just for the banking industry, but for some of the largest taxpayers in the state, the largest real estate holders, the largest employers. So there's all kinds of different issues that come out of that. And in addition to that advocacy work, we also do professional development and conferences, which is where I met you. We had a Women in Leadership conference just about a year ago now, and that's where we got to meet you, and that's always a wonderful experience. And then we do programming throughout the year in terms of, if you need to do continuing education or you want to learn more about the banking industry. And then we also help get our banks the products and services they need through partnerships with other industries. So founded in 1894. I'm trying to think of all the other things I want to say to you. Founded in 1894, and we've been busy ever since. And I'm proud to say this is a big one because we're talking about women today. I am the first woman to be named the president and CEO in our 129-year history. Somehow I still have the job, but I did it and I got it, and I've been here for 2.5 years in this role, but have actually been working at the New York Bankers Association for 10 years now. So that's us in a nutshell.
Wow, that's a lot to take in and big responsibility and big shoes to fill. So kind of like pivoting into my next question for you is, what was your early career like a young woman in finance and navigating the financial industry? So what was it like, and how did you get to such a prestigious place right now?
Oh, well, so first of all, didn't start out in finance, and didn't dream as a little girl to be the president and CEO of the New York Bankers Association. Imagine that. My path took me here, which I think is important to hear, right? I think when you come out of college, and you probably know this better than me because you just did it, you feel like you have to know everything, and you gotta have your career and you're set. And you think that's going to forge the path that you're going to be on forever. Well, I've been at this for a long time, Gunjan. And I started out first when I was in college. I went to the State University of New York at Geneseo. I know you went to Albany, so I'm a SUNY girl too. And I had started advocating for SUNY while I was in Geneseo. And so they were about to cut the budget for SUNY. Cutting the budget at SUNY would have doubled tuition in SUNY the following year. And I knew people who were in like their second or third year of college, and they weren't going to be able to come back because it was going to be too expensive for them. And I just thought that was so inherently unfair. They had done 2-3 years of good hard work, and just out of inequity, they couldn't keep going. And so I fought with SUNY advocates all across the state, and we got rid of that tuition increase, or at least lessened it, which is great. And a lot of my friends got to come back, and I was hooked. I wanted to do that kind of work from then on. That was my moment in college. I wanted to do advocacy work, and I thought I'd be doing it forever. And I wanted to do it very specifically in the higher education space. So I ended up getting a job in this New York State Assembly, working for the central staff for the Assembly. And I happened to be doing higher education. Didn't mean to, but I got there. And so I was working on the SUNY and the CUNY budget and all the private colleges and universities. And then I transferred over to the Education Committee, which is K through 12, and all that goes with that. And worked there for a couple of years. And then I kind of got to a point, Gunjan, where I was like, there's nowhere else to go. If I don't get another higher degree from here, I'm not going to have much more leadership that I could. And so it was a really kind of a key point for me when I realized I wasn't learning anymore in my job. I was doing the same thing every day, that I wanted to go back and learn more. So I ended up applying and going to law school. I went to Fordham University right here in the city. And somehow at Fordham got hooked into securities law, and got a job in a big law firm called Morgan Lewis, which is one of the largest law firms in the world, actually based in Philadelphia, but has a big office right here in New York City. Worked for them for 6 years. And then I again had that moment where I felt like I wasn't learning, I wasn't meeting new people, I was doing sort of the same thing every day. And I thought, gosh, what can I do next that sort of combines the two experiences? And I took a leap. I can't even believe I did this. I left without a net. I didn't have another job to go to. It was a really scary time for me. But I took some time to just sort of figure out the next best move for me. I got the greatest opportunity to teach at Fordham University. I was teaching mediation and negotiation, and doing a clinic with students there. And that was a couple of months. And then someone told me about this great new job that was coming available at the New York Bankers Association. And it was to be the government relations head and deputy general counsel at the New York Bankers Association. So that meant I was going to be able to take that advocacy work I had done in Albany and combine it with my financial services experience. So the two blended perfectly together, and it just sounded like a great gig. So I went for it. And I've been here ever since. I moved up through the ranks since then. I became the general counsel for a while, and then I was the chief operating officer as well. And then just 2.5 years ago, they gave me the big shoes, and I've been the president and CEO since. So really, like a long and winding path to get here, but a cool one where I've learned a ton, and I've got to meet great people like you.
Oh, well, we're so glad you're here
Yeah.
because I'm sure you're going to achieve a lot of great things in your position.
Thank
So,
you.
just following up on what you said, was it looks like you've had different roles throughout your career. Have you ever faced with an imposter syndrome where you felt like this is not where you should be? And if you did, how did you deal with it? What did you tell yourself and give yourself confidence that you are meant to be where you are?
It happens every day. Every day there's some big decision that I had to make. Every day in the CEO role, there's something else that I never did before. I say, we do what? Why? I have to make some kind of decision. It happens all the time. And I think, in the beginning, it would stop me, right? It would stop me from taking the challenge or taking that risk, making that jump from the law firm and not having a net, not having a place to go. But after a while, I sort of connected to who I am and my integrity and what I bring to the table, right? And what it is that I have confidence in, which is I know I work really, really hard. I do all my homework. I'm always over prepared for everything. And it got to a point where I just had to know that whatever choice I made, I was going to know what to do next, right? Even if I made a total mistake, I would figure out what to do next. And that's a level of confidence that I think came honestly with time, right? But I think even in your experiences that you've had, you've been working for a little less than a year now, right?
Yeah.
Even just getting the job that you got, even just, I remember when you came to see us, it was May, I believe, of last year. And at the conference, you were a senior at SUNY Albany, and you were deciding what you were going to do. You were looking for a job, and you're talking to all of us. That's the thing. Whatever that was that got you in that room, that's the thing that gets me over imposter syndrome, because you have such faith that that's going to get you where you need to go. I hope that's helpful. That was a little woo-woo, huh?
No, that was definitely helpful because I do realize that a lot of young professionals feel like that there's always a second thought in their brain of this is what they're supposed to do, this is what they're supposed to be. But it's nice knowing that you as the CEO also feel that way. So we're all in the same boat.
All the time. In fact, I was just talking to another CEO for a different trade association, and we were talking about podcasts. And, I said, which ones do you like? And, when we're commuting here in the state, that's all you do is stick your headphones in and you stick your head down and put the podcast on, right? And we're talking about, the Daily, the New York Times, and I like Smartless, which is a silly one that's on every week. And she said, I love this one podcast. It's called Imposters. And it's all, it's these really famous people that you've heard all about all their lives, and they're super successful. And they do this interview and they find out, and I jumped in and I said, that they're total imposters. And she said, no. You find out that they all have it. They all have imposter syndrome. They all have that feeling like, oh my God, somebody's going to figure this out. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to do the wrong thing. But I think you just have to know, you just have to find it within you to say, even if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, I'm going to know what to do next. And you'll get there. And it is what it is, right? It just happens. I think it's such an important conversation to have, especially when we're talking about, we're here for International Women's Day, when we're talking about women and how we approach the workplace a little differently than men. And so, I don't have 100% confidence ever. So there's always that little voice, and you just gotta have confidence that you know what to do. You'll know what to do, whatever the choice is.
Okay, so one day at a time, I guess.
Yes. Day by day we go. That's a motto here at New York Bankers Association. Ever since the pandemic, we never knew what was coming next. So it was day by day we go. Day by day we go.
I love that. So you spoke a little bit about advocacy, and I know that in your role, you get to interact with a lot of local banks and regional community banks. So I was just curious about what their consensus for the coming year is and how are they forecasting the economy. I know it's a big question, but what are their outlooks? And are the smaller banks in a way prepared to take on any challenge that this year may throw on us?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, great questions. Great questions. And I sat on a panel about the economy recently, and I thought, again, here's that imposter syndrome. I was like, what am I doing up here? I'm up there with economists, right? But I think what's kind of important, I'll get to the banks in a minute and answer the actual question. What was hitting me? It was actually for Geneseo. It was a number of students and people who had just graduated who had never experienced this before. I've been through it a couple of times, and the fear on their faces as we were talking about all this. I think I think the one that I can point to that I lived through that was very scary. I was at the law firm at the time. Is 2008, which has a lot to do with banks, right? Because it was the housing crisis of 2008 and all of the fallout after that. And you saw some of the biggest banks in the world just didn't exist one day. It was Thanksgiving weekend. I'll sort of never forget it as long as I live. And so I think what I would say most importantly today, and this isn't even just coming from me, it's not my opinion. We talked to a lot of people about this. The banks are much more resilient because of that. That's kind of cold comfort for people who went through it in 2008 and 2009 and thereafter. But because of all the regulation that came out, there's this big law called Dodd-Frank, where banks must be capitalized in a way they weren't before. They have to be stress test. They get poked and prodded by regulators all day long. You compare 2008 to what happened during the pandemic, when it so easily could have turned into a huge financial crisis. But the banks were ready. They were well prepared and they're resilient. I think that's a big difference here. So are we very concerned about rates and inflation and just like everybody else? Absolutely, but in a different way than it was before. So I think the smaller banks are ready. They are well positioned. And what they do is they'll diversify how they're lending. They'll talk about different ways to capitalize. And they've got lots of deposits on hand. So they're in good shape. I think everybody wants to see this economy get rolling again. It was a little disappointing to watch Jay Powell again today saying, "Oh, we're not there yet." I trust him. I'm not saying he's wrong or right. We wish we were farther along and we were getting there. But I think that's how people are feeling in the banking industry, at least in New York.
okay, so like, have you seen any other trends emerge in response to COVID and economic uncertainty and so much turmoil on the international stage? So what are a few trends that you are seeing across the members?
Well, certainly, a lot of people in March of 2020 had a 5-year plan to digitize their banks, and now we're all doing our banking on this, right? That 5-year plan became a 5-week plan very quickly, or a 5-day plan in some cases, as everybody had to just go home and do everything from there. So I think digitization of banking is a huge one, which I would hope will become a great equalizer and get more people. We are very focused here in New York Bankers Association on the unbanked and people who cannot get access to banking. So we hope this is something that will help in terms of getting people into the banking system and having safe and sound money. And then I think it's just wild innovation that's going on. Nobody even said the word cryptocurrency just a couple of years ago, and now it's a $7 trillion industry. That is something, these things are happening so fast and furious, it's hard to keep up sometimes. In my, the bio that they have for me, it actually says something like it's from the press release. First of all, they did a press release when I took this job, Gunjan, like who am I? What? So they did a press release, and the press release quoted our chairman at the time, who was the head of TD Bank. He said, "She is taking this role at one of the most challenging and transformative periods in banking history." And I was like, Jesus, thanks a lot. No pressure, but it's true. That's where we're at. This industry is transforming before our very eyes. And so I think you're seeing all of that happening. And I'll say this, some of the smaller banks are struggling to keep up. But we had this really interesting panel at our big financial services forum in November, where we had 4 CEOs on the stage. One was from JP Morgan Chase, or a market president from JP Morgan Chase. We had a small bank, a bank in New York City, a bank in upstate, all different kinds and types of banks and sizes. And everybody said, the last question of the panel was, what's keeping you up at night? And they all said it. They all said technology. Everyone, didn't matter who it was, didn't matter the size of the bank, how many resources they had. They want to keep up with customer demand for it, and keep it still safe and sound and regulated and all of that. But having trouble with that as everything is changing so fast, right? We're all struggling with that. So same here.
Yeah, hoping we can navigate technology soon enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So coming back to the International Women's Day theme of this year, that's equity and equality. And people may not know, but that's a big difference between both of them. And I'm hoping to hear some of it from you today.
Sure.
And besides that, what do you think, like more like how do you think that the finance industry should approach understanding this concept and implementing it? Because it's one thing to just understand and another huge challenge to implement concepts. So what is your outlook on this, and just a little bit about this theme and how you thinking about it?
Sure. No, this is why I'm so glad. I think poor Gunjan asked me to do this a couple of days ago, and I said, it's International Women's Day next week. Let's do it for that, because I really think it's such an important conversation, and particularly the theme this year. The theme is embrace equity. And we've had a number of experts come in and talk to our members, and they talk a lot about the difference between equality and equity. And so I printed it out because I don't want to get it wrong. Equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances, has started out from different circumstances, and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach the equal outcome. So recognizing that not everybody comes to, let's say, a bank or comes to invest their money with the same amount of money, with the same amount of resources, with the same amount of education and knowledge, right? So it's really about giving everyone what they need to be successful. And it's how we're going to create a much more diverse and inclusive world and industry, right? So one example that I was thinking of is childcare for women, or really any other caregiver at home, right? If you're expecting someone to come to work prepared and ready and not thinking about their children at home, or not able to work because they can't afford childcare, then that's an inequitable situation, right? So I was thinking about this in terms of financial services, and this is what I was thinking about. So there's this interesting study, and I'm trying to remember who did it, and I can't remember, so I apologize. But an interesting study that women in the finance industry account for 1/2 of entry-level jobs. 1/2, so 50-50. That's pretty good, pretty equitable, right? But by the time they reach senior level roles, women, and particularly women of color, are vastly underrepresented. It's something like under 20% of the leadership roles in the financial services industry are for women. And that, to me, is probably the biggest inequity that we have to work on in terms of women in the financial services industry. And part of that comes from, it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You don't see anybody in the C-suite, wherever you are, that is a woman or a woman of color, and you don't feel like you can strive to that. So you never get to that level because you're never over it. But there's other parts of it that that are really important to think about too. And this is something that's kind of goes to what we were talking about imposter syndrome. So research shows that men are considered for promotions based on their potential, while women are based on their proven experience already, right? So if you're feeling like you're not confident in going forward on something, and you don't have the proven experience, even though you probably have all the potential in the world, you have an inequity already against you in any industry, let alone the financial services industry. So honestly, I don't have all the answers here today, but we have got a long way to go. But I think if we start recognizing this and really level that playing field, right? If you're a woman, you have to proactively go after things and talk and think about your own potential versus what you've already done. Get rid of the idea that you have to be perfect before you get a project done, and really sort of hone in on that confidence and risk taking that is so scary for so many women. And I'm right there with you. But we got to do it. We got to show up, and then as soon as you get that door open, and this is something I said when I saw you guys at our conference in May. As soon as I get that door open, you better believe I'm gonna make sure it's stuck open, and the next 50 women behind me get to do this role, and we make sure we help each other out throughout our careers.
That's so nice to hear. So just going from what you said, has there been any mentor that helped you,
Oh,
that has given you this outlook on helping other women and in general helping students and
yeah.
helping mostly everybody who comes to you? So so have you had mentors in your life that have helped you, I
Oh,
guess?
I have been so lucky and blessed to have incredibly strong women in my life, starting with my mom and both of my grandmothers, and who just would not let down their guard until they got what they needed and wanted, and were just very strong advocates for themselves and for us. But I also had women who have looked out for me all my career. And look, I don't think that's by happenstance. I think I was maybe not actively or maybe not consciously looking for them, right? Looking for the people that I wanted to emulate and I wanted to be like. Our chair, you met Thelma Ferguson, our chair from JP Morgan Chase, is one of those people. She has been a very strong advocate for me as I started out in this new role. I'm so incredibly lucky that I inherited her as a chair. I didn't even have anything to do with her becoming the chair of our organization right at this moment. And I've just had incredible women that have helped me. And I'll tell you the secret about why I help you and so many others. It is so fulfilling to me. It is a totally selfish act on my part, because I love to see you succeed. I think I saw a post that you did on LinkedIn where you're starting your new job, and it just brought tears to my eyes. It's so wonderful to help you and be a part of your story. It's like I said, totally selfish, but it is a really wonderful thing to see, and I'm so proud of your success. It's fantastic.
Well, I'm lucky to have met you, and we've had conversations, and you've helped me navigate through certain areas in college as I started working. And I have been fortunate enough to hear from you candidly, but my last question to you would be if you had any message that you'd like to give other young girls that are starting on a new chapter in their life and heading into their first new job after college or seniors. And just because I feel like those women are the women that need the most encouragement and help. So do you have any message for them today?
Oh, absolutely. I think I would go back to what I kind of first said right away, which is never stop learning. Never stop learning. You just keep giving. The more you invest in yourself, the more you can give, right? In terms of jobs and leadership and helping others. But I think probably the other thing is that I think is important, and it's, I like I said in the beginning, I didn't wake up one day and say I want to be the president and CEO of the New York Bankers Association. I created this path for myself, and it's my path. It's not anybody else's, right? I think we do a lot of we all do it, and I still do it. So this is not, I haven't perfected this in any way, but we all look at other people and we try to compare and decide we've made it or we're unsuccessful, or they're doing better than I am, or whatever it is. And I just say run your own race. I actually trained for the New York City Marathon in 2018, not a runner at all to begin with. I just happened to enter the lottery and I got it. And you know, I had no idea actually how long it was going to take to train for it. I knew nothing. But I found this great trainer who would run with me in Central Park. And there's this one loop that everybody runs on in Central Park. And I would see people sprinting on this, you know, uphill, and I would see people almost walking, and I would compare myself every time, and I would tell him, oh my God, that person's going so fast. I saw them the other day. Blah, 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 blah. And in marathon training, you're doing a lot. You'll do sprints, you'll run uphill, you'll do some long runs. And what he said to me was, you have no idea what day it is for them. It could be their sprint day, could be their long run day, could be the day they're just taking it easy because they need to rest their muscles. You have no idea. So just put the blinders on and do your work. Do what you need to do to get ahead. And I think it's just such a great metaphor for anybody starting out in a career or at any point in a career. Run your own race and hum with integrity and confidence and do your homework and all that stuff. And you will do fine, and you'll find yourself as the first woman in 129 years, totally baffled as to how you got here, but knowing that you worked hard, and that's a really fulfilling and wonderful thing. And I'll end there.
That was some really good advice. So thank you so much. I'm sure anyone listening would find that really useful, and hopefully we can all implement this in our lives.